These are excerpts from famous saints and
Oh, yeah,
spiritualists.
yeah.
Did you get to see Father Benedict Rochelle's funeral? I missed it. A lot of them saw it. So it was really fantastic. I'd love to have seen it.
What I'm thinking about doing, John, is this. Sitting over there in the control booth and helping you from in there.
How we gonna, you know how to operate that thing?
No, I don't mean that. I mean, keeping you, asking you questions and stuff, you know, kind of making,
Oh yeah, that's what you mean. Yeah, yeah. To keep it rolling.
yeah, and that'll be a big help too. That'll feel worth a shit. And then I don't even know how long I'll stay. In a little while.
We have 7 minutes, I think. Yep.
Just start off with a prayer. You know, you don't mind. I'm not exaggerating when I say I don't feel good.
Well, you feel dizzy or weak,
Yeah,
or
they're both.
are you still on your blood pressure medication?
Just, yep. I just get like this now and then, you know?
Yeah.
That's why I don't go live. This morning at 6 o'clock this morning, my blood pressure was 120/80. But right now, I don't know what it is, you know, I just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, fluctuates, you know? Stuff like this don't help. We're supposed to be doing a show in 4 minutes. Jake, we're right now.
Yep, he's gonna have to be fast.
If I was gonna put a graphic up tonight, you know what I was gonna put up?
What?
You know what graphic I was gonna put up?
What?
The water on bed.
They have a graphic like that?
Well, no, we can make him.
Oh.
Jacob can do it, or something.
Well, he can do what he wants. I mean,
Got some notes?
no, I'll just have it in my head.
Yeah.
The Louisiana Association on Compulsive Gambling, helping problem gamblers and their families.
That's what that topic was on that last show.
Yeah. I don't say anybody can get addicted to gambling.
I don't understand that at all.
What gambling is a unhealthy desire to get wealth easy and quickly.
It would be shitty to have that desire to begin with,
Yeah.
you know? That's a no-brainer. I'm gonna call Jacob on my phone.
Oh, and then I have a meeting to go to after this. Oh.
The show starts in 4 minutes.
Uh-huh.
Man, he got me over here, man. All right.
Okay. All ready?
We're not on? I don't think so. I hope not. We've been talking.
I didn't know you were right there.
I don't think so. What time is it? Let's see. Yeah, it might be on. I don't see it recorded.
Good.
Well, look, we put something else behind you. Just go ahead and start talking, and we'll start recording. You got a video or something?
No, well, yeah, but he wants to do a live show.
Okay. Here,
I
let's
mean, I got a video, but. Why? Why are you asking?
Here we go. No, okay, yeah, what time is it?
I don't know.
I think you already went live. Let me see.
I mean,
Where
this
is
is
it?
looking like one.
I can check here. There we go. Oh, yeah, yeah, you just went live.
Okay, we're live. Go ahead, John. John,
What?
we're live.
It's time to hit? Okay.
I
Yeah.
think she might go, yeah, looks good. Yeah, go ahead, yeah, you start.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, to Don's and News and Comments. We're heading towards a great Advent this year. And I guess all roads lead to one place for Christmas, and that's Bethlehem. Let's hope that everything that goes well till Christmas is full of hope, charity, love, and prosperity for all of us. I'm here tonight replacing Don Bernard. He's not feeling well, which is not too unusual for him. I think he may be trying to escape and get a free vacation for a while. But tonight we're going to talk about what's wrong with our country today. Why are we having so many crises? And why is everybody putting the blame on everybody else, especially those that are in the position they're supposed to be doing the jobs of figuring out and solving these problems? If you're old enough to remember, President Truman had a policy. He said the buck always stopped here at his desk. And by that he meant that if he had an appointee that was not doing his job or making an ass out of himself in the public, he had to report to the president. And the president didn't say it's his fault. The president said, I appointed him. I'm the one responsible. I replace him. You don't see this today. What you see is they pass the buck. The buck doesn't stop anywhere. It's not him that's wrong, or he that's wrong, or her that's wrong, or them that's wrong. It's everybody's wrong. It's a mass confusion. How do you have a stable society when nobody that's elected to solve and direct it accept responsibility for their actions or the lack of their actions? We have a constitution which tells our government, the elected officials, that are there for the people, not there for themselves, that refuse to follow the Constitution. And what happens to a country that does not follow its basic law? What eventually happens is it cheapens justice, it cheapens the value of the law, it cheapens the value of the person in regards to the law, and then whatever happens is complete breakdown. And you know, our country is not immune to the forces of history. We're seeing it happen right here, just like it happened in Germany, in Russia, Italy, and different other totalitarian governments. When your elected officials do not have the moral turpitude or the moral courage to stand up for morality, you eventually see the country starting to fragment. And what do I mean by that? There are certain rules, no matter what your government is, that can never be changed, because those are laws and rules given to us by God, a higher creation. In other words, the one who created us and the law and nature. When you go against those laws, your country starts disintegrating. And are we doing that today? Yes, we are. You know, in the 30s, Nazism was wonderful about abortion. It was the greatest thing that ever hit the political platform. They want to get rid of gypsies. They want to get rid of people that were mildly retarded to purify the race. And that was a good thing, to purify the race. You know, it was a good intention. You know, it's for the betterment of everybody. So let's kill 20 or 30 million people that, through no fault of their own, they were born with a retardation, or they were born as a gypsy, or they were born as a black man, or whatever. Let's get rid of them. It'll be a happier society. That's one reason, right? And I know some people are going to jump out of their seats when I say this, but this is a good analogy for our camera lights, traffic lights. It's for the better good of everybody. But it just happens to be against the state constitution. And before you can pass anything like this, you have to go through a proper procedure. And that is to go to your legislature and the House, both houses, and then if the government sees or someone sees that they should make a resolution to adopt this particular type of procedure, well, then it's adopted. But it gives the people time and a referendum time to talk about it and discuss it and see if this is what people really want. It doesn't matter today. The elected officials went ahead and they stuck these cameras in everywhere. Other places have tried it, and they found it was more of a nuisance and a hindrance than it was a benefit to the people. It's the same thing in our federal constitution. Determining when the government steps in to determine what life is when they have no right to know what life is, because they don't know what life is. Only God knows what life is. When they step in to countermand his basic teachings, and then they say married life, a sacrament, is between whoever, dog and man and dog, woman and dog, woman and woman, man and man. I mean, when they start going to that extreme, you know something is definitely wrong with your country. Because in the 30s, remember, we condemned all these things like that, like whatever the Nazis or the fascists or the communists wanted. We said that was evil. But now it's all right. Why is it all right now? Why? Because these other countries didn't, we condemned them. We prayed to God asking to be delivered from these people. And now we're doing the very thing that they're doing. But we say it's all right. It's only one man's truth as another man's truth. Your opinion is just as well as my opinion. My truth is just as good as your truth. That's not truth, people. How can that be truth? There's only one truth. People use their let's say their heroes. They picked the wrong heroes today. Margaret Sanger, the leader of birth control. We don't know a thing about her character because the papers will never publish what she did as a young woman. She was a serial adulteress. She was a racist. She hated blacks. She was a social snob because poverty to her was demeaning, and she was above that, stuff. But this is who the feminists take as one of their heroes: a liar, an adulteress, a racist. It's the same thing again with you have these other racists, you're looking at Al Sharpton, and a few others, they jump on the bandwagon of condemning everybody else as being racist when they're the ones that are the real racists in the whole equation. And people followed them. People use these people as their idols. And, they're really hitching that star like to Hitler. You want to hitch your star to Hitler? Well, hitch it, my friend, and then you reap the whirlwind like the Germans did, like the Austrians did.
What about the tyranny? Hitler, did he get tyrannical all of a sudden overnight, or did he build it up slowly?
Well, that's the thing. The question is asked, was this built overnight, or did it take a period of time? It took a period of time, if you remember. Hitler started in the 20s, and he tried to push, and he was arrested by the German government, and he was put in prison. While he was in prison, he kept writing, and he wrote the book Mein Kampf, which he told everything he would do if he ever got into power. When he came out of prison, he reestablished the Nazi Party and started building it up, putting it different cells in different areas and stuff like this.
Did Obama tell us what he was going to do? What does change mean? What does progressivism mean? He wants to totally transform our society. What does that mean?
Now today, we have the same situation. It's building up slowly. It started during the Vietnamese War with that group of people who said, let's make love, not war. They got their degrees because they weren't fighting. They had nothing to do but go to college and protest in the streets. So now they have their degrees. Now they're in communication. They're in publication. They're in a lot of the big businesses. And so they're still carrying on their agenda of free love, no responsibility for the children you bring into the world. A period of time. It's a process, just like when Obama became president and promised he would do this, and we knew exactly. He didn't hide it from us. He did it little by little. And now he has 2 more years to go, and he hopes to complete every miserable thing he has done. And we will be the ones who will pay for it. We will be the ones who will carry the cross for him.
The attack on medicine is known as Obamacare, right? The attack on science is known as climate change.
Right. Well, somebody's asking the question.
The attack on education
Yeah.
is known as Obama.
Right. They bring out the argument that the attack on on science is called climate change, and the attack on education is the Obama what's called Common Core, and so forth and so forth. And this is how they do it. They do it by going into the media area and keep pounding day after day after day. And if no one stands up to challenge them, people come to believe that it's true. Even Hitler said that. Hitler said, you tell a lie enough times, people think it's true. And that's exactly how they ran their country and their propaganda.
What about the attack on men?
And now there's an attack on men, which we've known that has been going on since, what was her name? Greer started her book and stuff about men, and the women were sacrosanct and men were just trash and nothing else. Today, a man, if you're a man and you're married and you go into a divorce, you find out, even though with supposedly equal rights, you'll find out that the man still comes out in the hole A man can go to his girlfriend's house if she decides she doesn't want him anymore, wants to break up. She can call the police, have him evicted, and charge him with whatever she wants to charge him with, rape, brutality, whatever, and he's arrested for that, whether it's true or not. You know, but this is another fine point about all this. All these accusers, when they're proven to be liars, nothing's done to them. You look at, what was that name, Chawanga, whatever her name was, with Al Sharpton, got her to lie to the police, saying she was raped by the police. That very policeman that she claimed, which she admitted she was lying, he has still suffering today from repercussions, and this happened in, I think it was in 91 or something like this, or 90. He is still suffering today from that accusation, even though it had been proven that Al Sharpton set her up to lie.
What about Ferguson?
The same thing in the lacrosse scandal in Carolina. These guys were proven that the woman was lying and stuff like this, but they suffered all kinds of persecution socially, outcast socially, and stuff like this. Was she ever prosecuted? No, she wasn't. Then we have, you can go on and on, Ferguson, that's another situation. The father that stood up on camera when the ruling came out and said, burn it, burn it, burn it, why wasn't that man put in jail for inciting a riot? He fits all the classifications of the law for inciting a riot and encouraging it. He knew the temperature, the temperature of the situation there at the time. He knew that if he said anything like this, it could inflame it, and it did. Why?
The Attorney General helped things out, and the President?
Well, the Attorney General and the President are the ones that carried the big blame in this, because they put their foot into that situation before they had all the evidence. They determined that this Brown was right, regardless of what the scientific or the witness evidence said about the situation. And come to find out, once you had the hearing, it was a completely different story.
But did they listen to the
And the President and Eric Holder, Attorney General, never apologized for the fact that they are responsible for encouraging this riot. These people that suffered from this riot were people that had nothing to do with Brown and the city police. It was handled like it should have been handled. The guy was a thug. Why make him a martyr? Why take a complete thug and make him a martyr and burn down innocent people's business and stuff just because you don't want to believe the truth? It all harbors on that little question right there.
Well, it's really-
I'm not going to believe the truth. I'm going to believe what I want to believe, and therefore I have the right to destroy anything I want.
What about if Brown would have been white?
Well, that's another case they brought up. What would happen if he'd been white? Had he been white, nothing would have been said. Nothing would have been done, probably. You know, it's not sensational enough for the media to get a hold of it and make hay with if it's a white that had done something like Brown had done. The same thing with, what was that case in Florida? Obama stepped into that, and he was wrong.
In New York?
And it happened to be that it was a chicken, what I want to say, he was a Mexican American that did the killing. But it was advertised at first, you know, as a white person, and then it became, well, a Mexican American, you
Well, I
know.
heard that at one of the oil companies here in Lafayette, 7 men were fired because one man made a sexist comment, a joke, and there was a woman walking by, accused the man of sexism, and he got fired, but not only him, but the other 7 men who were hanging around the water fountain laughing when he made the gender comment. What about that? That's going
Yeah.
on all over the country.
Yeah, Don's making the example where in this local oil company, 7 men were fired because a woman was passing by while they were at the water fountain, and one of the guys made a feminist sexist joke, I guess, and the woman heard it and complained, and so all 7 were fired. It's a double standard. It's not justice. This is what's going on with our courts. Even our courts are too afraid to come out with the decision they know they should come out with. Abortion is wrong no matter how you look at it. I don't care what anybody says. But the Supreme Court took it up last year, and they were going to really look at it and see, is this bad or not? But the reason they didn't go through with the hearings is because they were afraid it would be too much of a political hot fire if they came out with the true decision.
Well, is, the Common Core, is that the federal government taking over education?
Well,
This is so, and not only that, it's a curriculum of pushing socialism, which is another word for communism, and to indoctrinate our children, and to brainwash them to where they think that government ought to be running everything, to thinking that the government ought to determine right from wrong, not their consciences, not what God has revealed, not the church, not the Bible, but that the government wants to decide what's right and wrong, and they want to teach the children to look to the government for what's right and wrong.
Well, that Don is saying that, well, which we all know, that the government is too much, the federal government is too much in our personal affairs, which is true. Common Core is one of the things right there, because it wants to indoctrinate these children at a very young age, and because they feel, the government feels that they can raise children better than their parents can. And of course, if you look at what our federal government is doing today, you know there's no way they can do anything well. You know, look at the Indian problem there in the previous to the Civil War and after the Civil War. It's because of the government's handling of that problem it was so bad. It could have ended quickly had they listened to these people that had grown up with the Indians and knew the Indians and took these people's advice to deal with the Indians. They could have stopped a lot of killing. And they would have, but the federal government never listened to them because it wasn't politically correct to do so.
What about the war on religion? What about those priests that are in jail right now because they're preaching, and the preachers that are in jail because they speak against abortion, they speak against homosexual sodomy, they're accused of being sexist. What's the word they use against preaching against homosexuality? You're accused of what?
Well, you're accused of being insensitive. If you're today, and I know in Canada that if you make a talk against same-sex marriages and homosexuality, you condemn it, and you condemn it because of the Christian moral law and teachings.
Hate speech, that's what they call it, hate speech.
Yeah, well, you will go to prison. You are not allowed to do this. We had a very prominent a religious person who's a moral theologist that's very popular in the college circuit in the United States, was invited to Canada to give a talk. The minute he got to the border of Canada, they refused to let him in, and the reason that they gave him was because he was an undesirable and he preached against homosexuality and same-sex marriages and things like this. So you see, evil has got the upper hand. You know, don't tell me I can't do what I want. That's not, they people like that, these liberals believe that if they can do anything they want to desire, that's freedom. That's not freedom, that's license. There's a big difference between freedom and license. Freedom is you have to do what you ought to do to keep society going and to keep it sane. You know, to be a liberal is to take from everybody else without your effort being involved and gaining from it and not giving back. Or feeling good about whatever you do, even though it may be immoral. It feels good, so it's correct. It should be law.
What about all the money that the Federal Reserve is buying government bonds and then inflating the economy so much that, and it's all hidden in the price of food and the price of everything?
Well, that goes whenever your authorities get to the extent where they have their hands in everything. There will be a lot of lies. There will be a lot of hidden agendas. There will be a lot of hidden things that should be known to the public. But today in Congress, and if you go to a lot of these political meetings and stuff like that, you'll see that these people, well, Mary Landrieu, take one prime example. Mary Landrieu thought we were so stupid that she could say, if you don't like us, you can unelect us. She felt so confident in her arrogance that she would say something so stupid that would bring her down, and it has brought her down.
Are the Republicans likely to,
you know,
like the Republicans are going to, the electorate elected, the Republicans won the last
That's right. Well, the Republicans are acting like they didn't win because that's how the Democrats are taking it. They take it that they haven't lost. So instead of the Democrats screaming over them about this, they're going silent. Well, whether they're going silent to plan strategy or their next maneuver, I don't know, but they better do something a whole lot better than they've been doing, the Republicans, for the past 20 years, because they haven't been doing much.
Have you heard them talking about, seriously talking about dismantling Obamacare? I mean, I know they're not, the new session hasn't, they don't get until January.
We don't know.
They're talking about it.
Yeah, we don't know if they're talking about dismantling a lot of Obama's structures he set up. I would assume that if they're intelligent, they would do that, but it's hard today to assume things. You have to wait to see what the action really is, not just the words. Let's see what they put into action. But if they don't do this, Obama and the liberals just get stronger and stronger, and the outcome will not be pretty because no one can totally control a population our size that does not want to be controlled by a small group of people in Washington, D.C. that can't even account for their own personal behavior and their own personal lives. And they want to tell us how to act and how to live. If we stick to the Constitution and would stick to it, we'd have no problems. But when you start straying from there, you give that person, you give him the freedom to do whatever he wants with the law, whether he wants to enforce it. And that's once you pass a law, the basic premise behind passing that law is that it is going to be enforced. But that's not what's happening today. Our Attorney General does not enforce any laws that go contrary to his philosophy. And that's not what he took to office for. They both, President and all you Supreme Court people, all you cabinet people, took an oath of office to protect the Constitution, not to tear it apart. So they could be tried for treason right now, what they're doing. But you have to have a body of people that oppose them enough to want to do this, and we don't have elected officials that have the courage or the character to do this.
What about the amnesty? I mean.
Oh, and the amnesty, well, this business of allowing illegals into our country where they benefit from everything that you and I have worked all our lives to accomplish, and they come in and they get it as quick as can be. If you had to ask for some of these benefits, you'd have to go through a ton of paperwork. And yet you're the one that produced the monies and stuff that created these programs. But the ones that haven't created them, have not worked on and given enough money to support these programs, can come in this country illegally and get free housing, free food, free medical, all at your expense. And then if they can prove that they've been paying Social Security tax, they can draw on Social Security. So we have a bad situation in this country. And just because it hasn't hit your home yet, doesn't mean it won't.
What about the disrespect, the loss of respect for law enforcement that these false accusations are bringing? Wait a minute, one more thing while we're on that. Does it look like the administration's trying to foster a racial war between the black races and the white race? I mean, does it look that way sometimes? Yes,
I think sometimes it looks like our federal government is fostering this business of racism between the different races here. It seems like if you're white, you're automatically a sinner, and you've sinned against everybody else. But that's because people that spout all these slogans out are not the ones that are going to be in the ditch fighting to change them. They want to have the pleasure of talking about them and stuff like this, but not the sacrifice of having to physically change things around.
Don't the communists usually come to power when a country loses its social fabric and loses respect for authority?
Sure. Whenever you lose respect for the law, that means you lose respect for every entity that belongs to the law, the Justice Department, the Police Department. That's one of the things you have to get the people to dislike or to disrespect, before you can get the people that you want to turn it over and put in what you want in. And that's how all revolutionaries start. They start by getting the majority of people to feel disrespect and loathing towards their elected officials or those that protect the laws. They get you to feel like the laws are not worthy of even being thought of. Anything that they can do to get the establishment or the cohesion to start breaking apart and start people fighting amongst each other in little isolated groups, this is right down their alley. This is what they want.
You think maybe the administration might at some point try to stir up enough strife so he can declare martial law in cities where, wait a minute, and then,
yeah.
like in Chicago, for example, if they have a lot of riots, you can declare martial law and start picking up the guns.
Well, that Don was bringing out this scenario that if they can get the people to start rioting and disobeying the law and just destroying things, you can call in the martial law, the National Guard, and that way you can confiscate guns and stuff like this. That way the people will not have no way to start a revolution or to fight or to shoot back. All these things are good scenarios, and stuff like this, and they all seem to face the history of revolutions and stuff like this.
Well, look at the French Revolution, the same thing.
Same thing. Yeah, our revolution was the same way. The difference between ours, though, and the majority of revolutions was that we founded it on good order. In other words, we had good grievances to fight. We asked to be represented, and they didn't want us to be represented. They just wanted us as a source of production and wealth so England could keep fighting her wars. And that was unjust. It was making the colonies to be something like a farm animal, just to pull the plow, keep planting, keep making money and stuff so we can keep fighting and keep our soldiers in the field. And that's not what the colonists wanted for their family and their children. And that's one reason why they revolted.
Are they making slaves out of all of us through inflation?
Pardon me?
Are they making slaves out of us through inflation?
Well, if that gets out of hand, we'll wind up like the Germans did after 1919, where you had to spend 40,000 marks just to buy a slice of bread. I mean, inflation can do all kinds of things to a country. It certainly will make them lose complete confidence in their government or their style of government, not necessarily the government people, but their form of government, and yearn for something that's more stable and more promising in material wealth and stuff like that.
Well, can a government become more tyrannical when the people become more and more poor because the inflation's eating up their paycheck? They really can't even barely pay their bills anymore.
Well, when you have inflation to the extent that your economy is so bad that people can't afford the basic necessities for their daily livelihood, they're easy to take over and rule and do what they want with them by making them promises of a better day and then turning around and giving them just a minimal bit what they don't have. People will latch on to that and say, you see, they're giving us something. Then later on, they'll give them a little bit more. See, oh, it's coming. So to get their loyalty to the new regime. But we are based on a constitution, a written constitution.
What about the old federal bureaucracies? Even if we get Obama out and get the Democrats out, you have the EPA, Homeland Security, all these tyrannical federal agencies who are well armed. It looks like they're preparing for a civil war.
Don has brought over the idea that even though we get rid of Obama and Obamacare and his people, we still have all these other federal agencies which have a great deal of power without representation, which is true. And that's a problem that the new federal government, the new people coming into office, need to rectify. They need to change that. They need to make all these other companies take the VA system. The VA system is still in shambles, although Obama appointed a new guy. Well, that new guy is underneath Obama's patronage. He's not independently free to do what he wants. And he's proven it because he hasn't done anything yet. And it's still the same. Patients are still waiting inordinately times, sick, not getting the care they should get that would help them live longer, in pain and agony. They still messing up on their appointments and stuff, and you can't see them right away. You have to take forever to see them.
What about
So
the-
what has changed? Nothing.
What about the war on energy? The green war on energy? Why is it, we're not self-sufficient in oil? Why, what about the Alaskan pipeline?
Well, we're not self-sufficient in all that's true. We're not self-sufficient in a lot of things that we're able to be self-sufficient in. And I understand the idea was to use the foreign raw materials and stuff to preserve ours. But what's happening now is that we're making our enemies richer and more powerful, and we need to concentrate on oil development here in America. The pipeline, it was a good thing to have done. It hasn't been done. I think the Republicans are going to come up and try and get this thing accomplished. It'll create new jobs and stuff like this. They'll build more refineries, I hope, which will also employ many good-paying jobs to many, many people. We have plenty of oil here, plenty of energy to run for years and years if we run it correctly.
We can export oil.
Huh?
We can export oil.
Well, we have many things, but and I understand this business of conserving it for future use. But we can still produce today and still have enough for future use if we do it correctly. And this is what we're not doing. We're not branching out to other fields of energy like wind power, solar power, water power. These are all areas that we could be using as energy producers, and we're not. We're strictly stricken to coal and oil and to hydro terminal dams, which we could go to nuclear, which is safe. If it's done right and it's followed, the regulatory laws are followed right, it is safe. It has proven to be safe. And it can be safe for the environment. Anything that we can build that can produce can also be built to provide safe production for the environment and for the people. It's a matter of your companies and your politics wanting to do this. Instead of having a greed for profit, have a greed for keeping your people healthy and secure, and your profits will come.
What about the foods we eat? Why is the Food and Drug Administration in bed with the Health Department, Department of Health of the United States government? Why is it prescription drugs are harming so many people, and they're having prescription drugs that are bad and hurting people?
Well, the thing of these regulatory companies, federal agencies doing such bad things today is a result of the corruption in government. I mean, Food and Drug Administration is allowing things to go to the public that shouldn't go because of the money and the time and the political pressure put on them to do so. If they could operate the organization where they didn't have any political pressure put on them, I guarantee you there'd be fewer mistakes in the drug industry than we have today. But there's too much political interest involved in these things that should stay out of it. And it should be a scientific approach only.
Does a man have a chance, much of a chance, when a woman's suing him for divorce or for abuse or anything like that? Or does a man automatically, for the most part, the man gets railroaded, and a woman can dress or undress, dress like she wants at work with practically no clothes on, immodestly, and if a guy stares at her, he can be accused of sexual harassment?
That's a possibility, Don, but you know, some companies have strict regulations on dress codes in the office, so women can't just dress like they want. To be provocative, they'll either be fired or told to go home and change or whatever. We have that dress code in the school board system here. There's a dress code for teachers. They have to dress a certain way or they'll be reprimanded or sent home. You know, yes, that's always a possibility. We do have a great deal of injustice in regards to man and woman when it goes into the court, when it's either divorce or it's a palimony suit or whatever it is. The man is always at the disadvantage, especially if he's very rich. Regardless of how innocent he is or how well he has been towards his palimony friend or partner, sometimes a great deal of many times he comes out behind the 8-ball and the woman walks free. But that has to do not with so much the laws, but with your judges, their ideal of what the law should be and stuff like this, and your judges are human like everybody else. They're influenced by different things, but they shouldn't be. They're supposed to be impartial.
What about all the people in jail under drug charges? It looks like it's an industry, the jails and the justice system.
Well, when you have a lot of people in jail because of drugs and stuff like that, there is an industry formed. You're right. The courts are making money, the lawyers are making money, and the drugs are making money. So yes, there is an industry. It's the same industry as the racial industry. This business of everybody being racial has to continue, because if they stop saying you're racial and stuff like this, well, then the government will not give money to these organizations that are supposed to be fighting racism. So that's an industry. And that's why so many people will stand up and say, oh, this guy's racist, whether they know so or not. They'll do it to keep the racial industry going. So yes, there are a lot of industries, and that is the energy industry, where we give money to Mexico to develop and be more efficient in their development of energy sources, a direct competitor to us. And we're paying the high price of gas to give money to Mexico, who evades our laws and our borders and has no respect for them. We give them money. That's money that you and I pay in income tax and on gas, on food and everything else. We're supporting them. And they're destroying us. It's the same thing with the Mideast.
The terrorists.
That we support the terrorists. Obama wants to give Yemen and so forth so many millions of dollars and stuff like this. Yeah, and he wants to allow these very people who are against us into our country without being examined or interrogated about their past experiences with Al-Qaeda or ISIS, and they could be full-fledged members of these organizations, and it wouldn't stop them from letting them into this country.
Why is the Iranian army allied with the Iraqi army in Iraq? Did you know that the Iranians are sending people over there to fight?
ISIS?
Yeah.
Yes, they are, but I think this is more of a political move than anything else. I don't think it's a movement to destroy ISIS. It's just a political move, maybe to get more money from us or whatever, to suck us into whatever they want to do, and stuff. And we're following it pretty closely. We'll let them fight their own wars, let them settle it, and see what happens. And then, if it's to our detriment, then we can put the boots on the ground and settle that. But this.
You think what about the war on the armed forces? I understand the Obama administration has been firing conservative officers on a very large scale. They do it one at a time where nobody knows about it.
Right. Well, that's true. You have your officers in the service that want to make a good career that are being let go because they are known to oppose the ridiculous plans of Obama, and those that stay in and kowtow to whatever Obama tells them, they'll do it. He just fired, what's his name? Who was his military advisor he just fired?
He's fired so many, I can't.
Yeah, well, this one he let go. He said he was resigning, but he was really fired. And the reason he was fired, because of the stupidity of Obama as a leader, as a military leader. And the ridiculous, dangerous things he was doing. But that's in all administrations. You're going to have some that are going to be fired, some are going to be kept because they spout the
strength and size for our armed forces. Obama's been dismantling them slowly but surely to where we're not powerful like we were 5 or 6 years ago.
Well, that's true. Our army is not as up to date as it was 10 years ago, and that's because of Obama's policies. And that is always. If you look at all liberal governments, they are progressive governments. They always do that to the military. They start firing them. They start reducing the numbers. They start reducing the amount of money they can operate on and stuff like this. Study history. It's always these people that destroy the strength of the army, and eventually it leads to a greater catastrophe, because then we have to build up again to go and fight an enemy that has made so much progress. Then we have to fight harder and lose more people to regain what we had years ago.
Look at Neville Chamberlain between the First World War and the Second. we have the same thing happening today.
Well, yeah, that's because liberalism and progressive governments always make the same mistakes. Chamberlain, between the two world wars, had reduced the English army to such a bad state. You had private people that were giving competitions to aircraft designers to design. They were paying out of their own pockets. Private people to have somebody design an aircraft that was better than anyone else in the world, or could break this record or that record. That was coming out of private pockets, not out of the government. Our government was the same way. We had reduced our army down to when World War II occurred. We were in strength, I think we were somewhere, I'm not sure if we weren't like 18th in the world in strength. That low down the totem pole. So we had to, thank God we had the two oceans, we're able to build back up. But we don't have that option today. We can be hit by anybody from any part of the world today. It's not going to be like World War II, where we were the only ones that were unhit or bombed or anything like this, and the rest of the world was. It's going to be a different scenario. And when you reduce your army, you can't be effective politically in the international foreign area. You have to have a strong military, so when you do go to a foreign country to make a treaty with or to discuss treaties and stuff like that, you have strength behind you. If you don't have strength behind you, you're not going to get the things you want in your negotiations with a foreign country. And that's just the way it is. That's history. No one can change it. Not even Obama, not even the Supreme Court. Only God can change that.
What about, like it says in the Bible, if my people would turn back to me and repent of their sins, I will restore them and restore their land. Does it look like Americans are starting to turn back to God?
Well, that's the whole thing about being a nation that loses its moral compass. When you lose your moral compass, you go away from God. And in scriptures, it does say where God said, if you return to me, I will make you fruitful and powerful again, stuff like this. But you have to make a definite turn towards God and the moral compass. It can't be a half-hearted thing. It has to be done in your schools, in your colleges, in your public schools, in your private schools, in your religious schools. It has to be done all the way up to the Supreme Court. They have to respect the one who made laws, the one who gave us laws. If they don't respect that, we're lost. And the only way we can be lost is by keeping people like that in office. And we're the ones that put them there, not God, us. We're the ones that saw what they were doing and said, oh, I like him because I'm going to vote for him because I like his hands. I've heard that. I like his hands, so I'm voting for him. As if that has anything to do with intelligence, or.
What about the universities now?
Well,
Are they agenda driven? Are they brainwashing our kids?
many of our colleges today, yes, are driven by agendas and are subverting our children. And we're sending them there, and we're paying the money to have them do it. We're paying to have our children indoctrinated. Isn't that wonderful? And we're sitting back home and not saying a thing about it. That's funny. Here we are paying people to indoctrinate our children and teach against everything that's fundamentally great in a country. Every country's going to make a lot of mistakes historically as it's getting stronger and stronger. That's just humanity, But to browbeat me for my father's sins, that's anti-Christian. That is anti-Christian. My people were never racist, even though I grew up in the Deep South. They always taught all of their children that everybody should be respected, no matter what color they were or where they came from. My parents never made us feel like we were, because we were white, that we were privileged and better than somebody else. They never did that, and that's why my parents were well respected in the black community in the town I was from, because they were always helping lesser people that had less than we had, either in contracts or to get help from the police or the DA and stuff. Always helping these people, reading letters for them or reading legal forms for them and explaining it to them and stuff. Always helping these people. and respecting them. And people know when you respect them. And the black people in that community has always been very respectful towards my family and my mother and father. But
When you speak out about certain moral values and political truth, why do they accuse us of a lot of, oftentimes accuse whites of racism for not approving of what Obama's doing? Why is that?
I have no idea, but I think this is something that is taught in the home, that many of them are taught in the home that all people, like many whites taught in their homes, that all blacks, you couldn't trust them. I think that many blacks in the teach in the home to their children the same thing. Don't trust the whites because they're white. It's a racial thing, and it's something that's taught in the home because